It's the world premiere for the all-new MOODY DS48. Right, all the way forward on the bow you have a great big stainless steel double barrel roller. Pretty handy really. Anchor one side and then you can hook onto a mooring ball or whatever on the other side. Obviously, as we're indoors, you're not going to see any of the furling gear. This Moody is set up, or will be set up, with a self-tacking jib. So you've got your furler point for the jib there. If you want, you can have an overlapping genoa, and then forward is your point for a code 0, code D, Jenica, spinnaker, whatever your sail plan is. I'm not going to lift them up, but obviously starboard and port and all around this boat, midships and then aft, you have pop-up cleats, which are pretty standard for Moody. And one thing that's really nice for the Moody is you have a solid stainless steel rail all around the boat. Obviously your sears will go round, and they're famous, obviously safety for kids, depending on your children. Obviously the walkway is really nice and safe with your cabin top nice and high. There is a massive sunbed here, and obviously underneath you've actually got hatches, but purpose for the show. There's a sunbed, and where I was sitting right at the bow, you've got a really nice table for coffee or whatever in the mornings, or your sundowners in the evening. And then when you're down below in your cabin, you have a really nice forward-facing window. Going to come aft, as I mentioned before. So self-tacking jib. Obviously there's your jib track, and if you had genoa, I'll have to find out from the manufacturers, but they would either run along there or short genoa tracks like you get on a catamaran, so they'd be higher up on your roof there for the saloon. Flush hatches, and forward, as you can see here, where your mast will be, obviously all your reefing lines, halyards and so on, obviously run under the deck all the way down the side, so it keeps your walkway clear of any lines all the way through, nothing to trip over, back to the cockpit. Inboard, outboard shrouds. It's hard to show it indoors, but obviously the boat's likely to be at the Cannes Boat Show this September, so we'll get another look around September, I hope. Maybe a test sail if we're lucky. Right, your raised saloon, this one's optioned out with fixed non-slip solar panels, so it's a really nice option. There's a lot of real estate up here, and you have forward and aft opening hatches. What's really nice too, that if you have to get up here to do anything on the mainsail, if you haven't chosen in-mast furling, so you've got slab reefing, the boom, I'm not going to get up there now, but obviously your boom is just going to be above your knees, so to be able to put your mainsail back in the stat packs, it's really easy and nice and safe. Here we go to the discussion with the genoa tracks. You would have thought I would have looked before opening my mouth, but they're actually set all the way out here outboard. So if you're flying a Jenica or something like that, you know, bring your lines back really far. And something you may notice as I come back, your walkway, your deck, actually slopes down. This is one of these USPs for Moody. And before we go all the way back, you've got a boarding ladder, both starboard and port, to get onto pontoon or marina walls. It brings you all the way back into the cockpit with no step. So it's one level walking all the way forward for safety. Something I really like too, if you're on the helm, you know, you've got your friends and family down in the cockpit. Nobody wants to be kneeling on a seat or whatever to do anything on the winches. So obviously you've got electric controls. We're going to go through all that at the moment, but you can be here at the side, brace yourself on the rail, be lower down, and actually deal with your winches and your lines that come out through down to your bank of clutches. And if you're worried about any of your halyards or reefing lines fouling up, you see the nub screw here, they've got them all the way along. If there ever is an issue, you can just undo it all, pop it off, sort it out and get it fixed. I'm stood here at the helm. Before we go over all the helm controls and so on, I just want to point out the stainless steel handrail that runs all the way forward. This is actually at shoulder height for me, so it's nice and safe, and also your view down the side of the boat. And then obviously if you're at the helm, you can see through the windows. Here aft, not that you can see it all that well, obviously because of the platform. We'll probably be able to have a better look in September, so if you have any questions, let me know. But behind here there is actually a drop down transom bathing platform with a ladder. I'm going to find a photo on the web, but while we're here you can see with the dinghy garage, so you'll have a full Williams or something like that inside, and then coming out with a photograph, hopefully you actually have a davit arm that lifts the boat out and into the water and back. Let's see if we can find it. Some of the nice little touches, you have a pop-up lamp here. Jeffer steering, so you know you're going to have a nice feel on the rudders of seeing what's going on. Carbon style wheels or resin wheels. So you have a Raymarine hybrid touch chart plotter, your repeater and your electronic throttle controls, and then over here your start stop, bow and stern thruster, which I think is really important, and a docking station for your portable VHF radio, and your Yamaha. So it's pretty self-explanatory because it's marked up in haul, out haul for your main, so on. So this one will actually be set up with an in-furling mast, and obviously the electrics for port and starboard primary winches. So you flick those on and then you can use the electric switches. It's nicely set up. You have a really good view starboard, down along here, down along the side. So if you're sat on the seat, you know, you've got a pretty good view forward. And then looking through the cabin, obviously with all the fluorescent lights we've got here, it makes it a bit more difficult, but I can see the bow. That's the most important thing at the end of the day. Like all the other DS's, obviously you have a compass up here, and there's probably an option for a grab handle, something I would have, and maybe one on the side here. Before I go over to the port pedestal, underneath the main central seat you have a gas grill sink. I think it's a really nice option. You might as well use the space. And then just below that, part of the seat as well, there is a handy cool box ice box, somewhere to keep your beer or your fish you've just caught and cleaned fresh and cool. And then access into what would be your dinghy garage and storage. And then before we stand up for the port helm, as you can see over there, you have a bit further forward, you have the shore power and a separate one for aircon, so you're not overloading your systems. And obviously this seat can lift up like on the starboard side. Over on the port helm, pretty much mirrors what's on the starboard helm. You have your compass forward, Yamaha electric throttle controls, your Raymarine hybrid touch chart plotter, autopilot, repeater, and then obviously once again port winch, in haul, out haul, so on. Your engine start stop and a Fusion stereo. Have one step down into the cockpit. So we go into the cockpit. I'm just going to show you the winches to start with. So here we have a Lumar 65 self-tailing electric winch. Obviously the controls are here, and if you remember from being on the helm. So both of these are electric, and you can just flick through which one you're using, and then obviously use the control here to operate the winch, and then you have your bank of clutches here. So it's, you know, I mean, in theory, depending on what tack you're on, if you've set your switches up, you don't need to come out of this lower cockpit area whatsoever. Dual tables, and I know people think it's a little bit odd, but if you actually look where my feet are, they're perfectly positioned both port and starboard. You imagine if it was all the way over there, somewhere in the middle, and you're on the hill, there's nothing to brace your feet about. You know, you're going to be on the floor. So it makes sense. You've got some good handles here, which also double up as rest for the table. It would be nice if you could fill the middle bit, you know, if you were so way inclined, but at least you can see from this position. If I come round a little bit, if you're going forward or aft, at least you've got some really good grab handles either side. Open the port side locker for you so you can see. Right, port side locker, everybody knows with the Moody DS's, your cockpit lockers are huge. So this one's been set up with a washer dryer. I think you've got room to put in a separate dryer if you wish. You obviously have access to systems, some electrics. These are, I mean, the rubber seal hasn't been put on this locker yet, and in theory in a deck saloon you're not worrying too much about water getting in here. I should imagine it could, you know, nothing's totally safe at sea to water. Obviously you have access to services even lower down. This whole section by the ladder and here lifts out so you can get down to the bilges and other bits and pieces. And then we'll do the starboard side locker quickly. So as you can see, so this one's completely empty, so it gives you an idea of how much volume there's in there. If you want the cubic meterage, I'd say you've got about 3.5 to 4 cubic meters in total here. This wide angle lens really isn't doing it any justice. One thing that's quite impressive, I'm 5'8", 5'9". Obviously these are the high sections that come back from the cockpit. The framing up here, as you know, you have a canvas top, so you can put it over, protect yourself from the sun and the weather if you wish. I want to give you an idea of height. So there's here is the top of what would be the cockpit roof, so you've got loads of head height. So if you're really tall, there's no issues whatsoever. And typical with Moody, you have a really nice opening window here going into your galley space and your patio sliding doors. And there is, which I think is really cool, you have a washboard. So you can put a washboard across here, slide across here if you want, and leave the door open while you're at sea, because you have a large draining area here as well. Coming straight through the door, obviously it's a DS, so from your cockpit, coming all the way through, it's one level living. I'm going to give you a pano so you get a good idea. There are a couple of options for up here. So you have your sort of main saloon area there, and it's quite nice. I quite like the way it's been optioned out here on the port side, where you have like a morning coffee or an evening drinks area. And it would also be really nice to do your night watches here. But if you saw with the video on the 41 where you can have that area, that little nav station area and so on, you can have that too. But to be perfectly honest, with modern day electronics, especially with Raymarine, how it sets up Bluetooth and Wi-Fi with your iPad, you know, it's up to you. It depends on how far you're going to go. But this would make a really nice office space. You've got a television there. You can set it up. You guys know how to do it technical wise. If you want to, you can set it up and have your navionics on there and then sit over this side. You know, it's Figure it out. Let me know in the comments below what would you do. Would you have a little nav station there, or would you keep it like this and sort of figure things out Bluetooth and Wi-Fi wise? Port side of the galley, some really nice fiddles on this Korean worktop. Got a couple of mains plugs aft, and then a really deep drawer with a fridge or freezer underneath, depending on how you want to set it up. And just up above you have an opening hatch for ventilation, and around all the windows are obviously set up with blinds, so you can close them down at night, which is really nice. Typical, obviously Moody are made in the hand yard now, so you'll recognise the little touchlight buttons. It's all very, very familiar. I'll show you what's under the floor in a minute. You have a twin stainless steel sink, obviously hot and cold water, and just below, once again, a drawer and a dishwasher. That's a big dishwasher, so pretty good capacity there if that's what you want, but obviously you can option it the way you want and just have another cupboard there, or a stainless steel fridge and freezer. And then you have a bottom and top access fridge here if you want, so access from the top as well, which is pretty handy. Something that we see on all the hands boats. And a cutlery drawer or whatever, self-closing. 3-gas gimbaled stove. Obviously there's a lot of real estate for solar, so if you wanted to, you could go to induction. And then underneath, a handy pan drawer. I'd prefer a pan drawer than a drop down thingy for your pans, because they just fall out everywhere. And your emergency gas shut off is just in here. Bin and bin. There, simple stuff. Directly below, under the floor, you have access to mechanical space. So let's give you a good look. So, fuel scrubbers, fresh saltwater inlet. There is one of your fresh water tanks. All the information on how many litres will be coming across the screen. I can't see over there, you guys can, so I don't know what's over there. Let me know in the comments below. A 40-litre hot water tank. They are Raycol filters too, which is good. And then your Panda generator. And here is your Yamaha. I don't want to drop my microphone. Yamaha diesel. Let's see, all the way back there. There's obviously access in the cockpit to get back there. There's a manifold, starter batteries. Obviously access to tanks, more service area and storage down below. It's really annoying I can't get in there, but it is what it is. The end of the galley port side, there's these huge drawers and cupboards. Look how far back you could get a couple of small children in there. I don't want to get in trouble with that, YouTube, it's just a joke. Okay, so starboard side, you have a really nice U-shaped saloon area. There are fiddles on the table and grab handles, so for when you go further forward. This one has been optioned out with a table that can obviously go up and down and turn that into a massive double day bed. Should be very nice. And then port side, love this spot. So port side, we have autopilot here, engine start stop, and your electric throttle controls. So we've had this discussion about having a nav screen and stuff like that. If you've got your iPad and you've linked it up to your Raymarine gear, you don't really need to pay for another chart plotter and so on. You've got a nice comfortable spot here. Your television comes up and down on hydraulics, and then further forward there's a spot for your Raymarine VHF radio and Fusion stereo there. This is a really nice spot. And obviously in the saloon, because you have these huge windows and skylights, forward and aft opening hatches, you can see what's going on with your mainsail. So as long as the weather's not too drastic, you could sit in here and do your watch nice and comfortably in the peace and quiet. Right, let's get on to the accommodation, shall we? There is 4 very easy steps down. Grab handle here, and before we go too far, I'll give you a look in the panel. So here's sort of like your mains, your switches for air conditioning, lights, that sort of stuff, and then you have a, oh, just turned all the bloody lights off. So obviously power on, off, interior lighting, navigation, electronics, so we'll pop those on, navigation lights, so on and so forth, all touchscreen, and you can see digitally water levels in your water tank, battery, etc. And down here you'll see your Master Vault digital display, which isn't on at the moment. There we go. Let's start on the starboard side. There are different options for the cabins, so you can have this as 2 singles, which is really nice. There is a very small step down there, but it is a really nice cabin for your besties or your kids. There's plenty of storage. I'm not going to open them all. It's been a very long day here today at Dusseldorf, as it been for the last 4 days. There is an opening hatch up there for ventilation, and that's on that deck walk, you know, on down on the walk side, and then 2 really nice port light windows. This cabin has a large, you know, hanging locker and shelves. Pretty much self-explanatory. Mirror. And then just behind me you have the heads. So electric freshwater flush toilet, nice port light window, ventilation open hatch, and you can see the mosquito or privacy blind depending on how you want to do it. Corian tops with a Corian sink built in, hot and cold fresh water, and a really nice separate shower. And once again, I'll turn around so you can see the head height. I'm sort of 5'8", 5'9". Head height is, there's loads of head height. So for you tall people, you lovely tall people, there is plenty of room and storage. There is a plug for electric toothbrush or hairdryer, or, you know, a few chaps, your electric razor. Just give you an idea. There we go. And then across. So, electric cables. Yep. And then obviously it's keyed access, but this gives you access to obviously your cables and your electrics behind. And then straight across the companionway you have a double cabin. It's a little bit lower in here, but still loads of room, and you can actually have this as a single or just as a storage room, like a workshop room, which would be quite a nice option if you're going off for long-term cruising. And then you have all these lockers for storage over here. Typical lights with Moody or the Hands Boatyard. So you have white light, red light, and USB charging. You have a plug over there, and then, I mean, all down the side there is storage. So they haven't wasted any space. Once again, you have those 2 port lights like you do in the other cabin, and opening hatch. If it was me and my boat, I'd actually have this as a single berth workshop, and then have a double in the other cabin, but that's just my choice. And then you have, obviously, let's get some lights in here for you, aircon and lights. So that's much better, you can see it much better, can't you? You have the same mirrored cupboard there, it's okay. And then just forward, so you have your mast, kill step mast, and then on the port side, just after that cabin coming forward, you have an electric freshwater flush toilet. Similar, I quite like the styles of the new sinks and so on, all Korean. Storage underneath, and a door that goes through into the cabin like that, so it becomes like a VIP. Separate heads, and you have ventilation up above, so that's pretty cool. And then forwards is the owner's cabin, and there's a, I don't know if you can see, but there's nice material panels on all the walls coming forward. There are his and hers, hers and hers, or just hers, or his and his cupboards. So huge shelving, and then hanging locker. It looks like the boat has been abused at the boat shop, which is a bit of a shame, but there's some sections of the boat that have been, well, ripped off. It's pretty disgraceful, actually. Yeah, I'm going to go and get one of the guys and tell them about that, because it's bloody awful. Some people have no respect. Port light window, and then you have opening hatch. And when we started the video in the tour, there is that front window up top, and then you have opposite opening hatches underneath here, but obviously the sunbeds are up there, so you can't see. Another opening hatch on that side, another locker on the starboard side, and then storage either side of this island bed. There are like little cupboards and air conditioning unit and so on. It's quite smart. And then just coming after the bed, you have the owners. Let's see if we can, wrong light. There we go. You have your own separate heads with separate shower. So once again, Jabsco freshwater flush. Your grey tank or black tank and stuff and piping is behind there. Have that nice Korean sink. I like the LEDs within the mirror to help light the place up. It's pretty cool. And then you have your own separate corner shower. There's a nice wooden seat there to fold down, and opening hatch. Right, well, I go and get one of these guys and tell them about the damage. If I've missed anything, please let me know in the comments below. We will be getting on this boat again in September, so I'll be able to answer your questions, or, you know, show you some of the stuff that I've missed. Please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, and if you're new here, welcome. I hope you like the boat tour. Yeah, please come again, and see you on the next one.